Hello guys, I will review about the School for Good and Evil, but before that, I will introduce myself. My name is Yulia Margaretha. I'm from English Education Study Program. Okay. Who in the mood for a fairy tale of short? The School for Good and Evil is now on Netflix. So, how is the fantasy story? Best friend Sophie and Agatha find themselves on opposing sides of a modern fairy tale when they are swept away into an enchanted school where young heroes and villains are trying to protect the balance of good and evil. This is based on a book series by Shoma and Shainani. And I'm not read it, so I don't know how this has been changed for the adaptation overall, but since I'm reviewing the movie and not the books, I think it's gonna be okay. This star Sofia and Caruso as Sophie and Sophia Wiley as Agatha, but this also features Kerry Washington, Charlize Theron, where Lawrence Fishburne, Michael Yao, and the voice of Cate Blanchett, which at times was making me think I was watching The Lord of the Rings just because of her unmistakable voice. And Kate and Wild, see narrating we follow Sophie and Agatha as they get taken to the magical school for good and evil. Now Sophie wants to be there. Agatha, she does the first version of this story, give us some good background on the relationship and their friendship, which I think helps them to establish their values and their desires. That took quite a while for this movie to click with me. I mean, at about 30 minutes, and I still wasn't fully sold on what I was watching, but by about the horror mark, I was enjoying myself and I was being entertained. The movie opens with a great magical battles, and I actually paused the movie very early on to see if this was directed by a Bollywood director because the setup and just the way that it starts, it felt like it could be, and it was, but early ways it had been as there so many times throughout this that the style of an Indian director would have to get advantage of the leafy sets and the story idea and then made it an epic just with singing and dancing and crazy action. Now this is a long film at almost 2.5 hours, and there are parts that I definitely feel. I mean, I think a lot of that is due just to the thinness of the plot and even a lot of the characters. Now the story is straightforward and it's easy to follow, but it fakes the tension that it infers. It's going to create. There's the nefarious plot at the cost, but peril, danger, even intrigue, they're not present in that part. I mean, it's convenient matter of factually with no surprise or even nuance, and there talk about how the students at the school are the ones who could be chosen to play cat stories that become our fairy tales. Now I would have loved to have seen some of this in action, but it's only an idea that's floated several times, making me think that it was an important aspect of the story, but without action to back it up. I mean, it's just what's the story idea, and the characters are basic as I mentioned. I mean, I like the dynamic between Sophie and Agatha. And I really love the dynamic between Kerry Washington and Charlize Theron. I mean, they're banter in angsty and even foggy at times, but they both play their characters to the fullest, which sometimes make them a bit absurd, and I love it. But everybody else there just present. I mean, if one or even several were to disappear, you barely notice theirs. Even this main girl's type of addition to the story, but it's inconsequential and it's barely excitement. There's conflict within many of the supporting characters, but the person is so ill-driven that it just comes across as some privileged habits causing trouble for some perceived have-nots. I mean, the antagonist is clear, but it feels pointless in the grand scheme of the whole story. Now, there is some mystery supposedly being built that evades Sophie, but when the reveal comes, it's been so obvious from the very get-go that I was confused at whether the story actually thought it was a true reveal. There also a slight romance that supposed to be applied, but that part feels like It's a whole talk like the reader want it to be present, but aren't going to devote enough time to actually make the relationship worthy of our swooning Charles charisma between the character, but it's not developed enough to be meaningful. I really enjoyed the world building, especially with the customers, because this is the school for good and evil. There are students that belong to one or the other. Now the good side is filled with flowery gowns and princely costumes that just showcase pride. Colors that are typically very shiny. The evil side consists mainly of black clothing, and a lot of the time the students are also very dirty, which I don't totally understand, but it's kind of like your typical high school where there are two opposing cliques that not only differ in their dress but also in their ideals. Now special effects are impressive and immersive, which I thought was awesome to see. There are greater scale immersive, which I thought was awesome to see. There are greater little bits of magic, and then there's spectral images that help to just create the fantastical world. No, I don't think this is a bad movie, but it is a bit lackluster, and when it takes almost half the runtime for me to get invested, I think that's asking a bit much of the audience. Now, this is a bad movie, but it's a bit lackluster, and when it takes almost half the runtime for me to get invested, I think that's asking a bit much of the audience. Now, I did enjoy the movie once I was clicking with it, but it's not anything that turned out to be memorable or special. There are a handful of characters. They are enjoyable and they have good dynamics with each other, but the story is still very basic with a lot of missed opportunities to create a captivating presentation. So overall, the School for Good and Evil introduces a world of magic and mystic but fails to deliver on all its promise. The acting is engaging, but many of the characters less depth, relying on the charisma of the actors to keep audience entertained. The special effect and costume design elevate this, but visual alone aren't enough to create a memorable fairy tale story. There's no sex or nudity, some profanity and some violence. I give the School for Good and Evil 2.5 out of 5 cause. So, what magical movie that you like? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Yulia. This is movie. Bye bye.